and
make sure it's public.
Yeah, I definitely looked and saw that it's public.
Great.
Cool. We are now live.
We are on.
Beautiful. Let's double check the publicness of it. Do you want to check that on your end? And yeah, we're good. We're up. Cool.
Yeah, we're good. We're on. Hey everyone.
Hello everyone. Welcome to Team Purple. This amazing spontaneous synchronicity of the colors. Look at that. It's seamless. Seamless.
I know. What is this? It's like we coordinated or something.
Yeah. Well, I did earlier. I did just what shirt should I wear? Mm-hmm.
This morning I had a conversation with someone about purple because there was a purple smoothie and I was like, oh, it's purple. And then there was a purple toaster that arrived in the house today. So I was like, oh, it's the purple. And then suddenly it's the purple. So like this morning I had this awareness of like, oh, everything's becoming purple. Like things are shifting into purple. So it's actually a thing, like the fact that you came on with this like purple shirt and I'm with the purple background. I'm like, okay, it's definitely like a purple theme going on today.
You should see my shorts as well and my socks. They're all purple. Shorts. I can't. My socks aren't on right now, but they're just over there. They're purple too.
Purple. Bring on the purple.
3 elements of purple. And I had a purple smoothie this morning as well. Anyway, right.
And it's a very specific, like that lilac, right? Like
that is not. That. Like I'm reaching over. Hey, Eesha, I'm touching you.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. What do you think's going on there? Any idea? You just like collecting clues?
Well, I did tune into the purple this morning because of the whole purple. I mean, the purple toaster and the purple smoothie and the purple, and now you're wearing purple. I'm like, cool, everything's purple. But so what I was feeling for myself was that like the last sort of couple of weeks, everything's been like in the red spectrum for me. So like my nails are always indicative of like the color frequencies, right? I always paint my nails based on like whatever feels coming through. So the last lot, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's like it's all red. Mm-hmm. So I've got like the red fingernails, all shiny. So yeah, I feel like next time I get my nails done, they're gonna have to be purple because clearly it's the purple vibe coming in now for the solstice and the 12/12 gateway.
Wow. Okay. Oh, do you think it's to do with that? Creating something.
I associate this lilac purple color with Lyran energies. Like I see them as very like feline, like high vibrational, like Lyran. Because I see the Lyran energies in like the cream whites as well, but sometimes I see them in this more Lyran. Lost the word. Brain melt. In the lilac spectrum. Yeah. Brain is actually melting. It's so hot here right now. It's crazy.
Oh, same. But it is hot. Brain is melting in general as well. You're not feeling that just collectively, like we're all having a big old brain melt.
Like everyone needs to sleep for December so we can keep.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. It's nap time. It's like a 1 month Christmas nap time. Everybody go to bed.
I agree. It's like just relax, everyone. Like stop resisting. Just let this through.
Exactly. Let's just get through the year, guys.
I know. I've been feeling that. I've been looking like November and going like, I can't wait till November's over. I'm just like getting through the day. And anyway, I think a lot of people can empathize with that right now. Definitely.
We did an activation in my New Earth Rising group on Friday, which was essentially like going through the timeline and just planting ourselves in January and going, cool, let's just throw an anchor into January and then just pull ourselves like into the new
year. Yeah. Damn, I want to do that for my next activation. That's perfect. Oh,
it was so good. So between the 7th and 10th of January, there's like that feels like a solid anchor point. So we basically just put ourselves in there, and then we were like, we're going to anchor ourselves in there. And it was almost like that visual of then like getting a rope, and it's like the 7th of January is like pulling us forward, you know, like that's how we're going to slide through December.
Wow, I love that. I had that same with the 7th. Just yesterday it came through. It was like the 7th of January. That's the day. I don't know, like something begins, or it's so hard to say.
I feel like 2021 doesn't actually begin until the 7th of January, because between the 1st and the 7th, it's almost like this integration period that needs to come in. It's like we're going to need 7 days to release 2020, you know, to actually get over like everything that's happened. And then from the 7th of January, the 7th to the 10th, I'm feeling that little window there is like when we really start to kick forward. So I'm not doing anything until the 7th of January, like in my business or anything.
That's what I was saying.
Like, I'm going to sleep for the first 7 days of the year.
I literally had like my last client yesterday and my next client is on the 7th of January. And it's like,
right, perfect.
I need that space. I need that space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. And the team, yeah, they're liking the naps. Hey, I totally, team naps. Although having said that, it's like, how's your sleep been? Because my sleep's been like pretty whack.
There's definitely been a lot going on in the astral realm. So the last, I think 3 nights, I've had some like really crazy dreams and just having to like wake up and clear my field first thing in the morning. Yeah, that's been a thing. It's been busy. Like it's been really busy. And like what I've noticed, particularly energetically, is like there's actually stuff happening now between the 4-5D interface. So I'm actually looking at what's happening between those dimensional realities and how things are being anchored through that. Because what I feel happened pretty much throughout this whole year is like when everything went into the COVID timeline, there was like this excessive polarity, like polarization that happened on the planet, right? And that's very characteristic of like a 4th dimensional vibration. So we talk about this, you know, the astral spaces, and it's very 4D, very typical 4D. So when everything went into that like real duality, polarity, like pandemic sort of timeline, I tuned in. I was like, oh, okay. So it's almost like the primary frequency of the planet at that time was actually more like it felt more 4th dimensional than 3rd dimensional. Like it felt more in that sort of astral sort of space, which is, you know, has pros and cons. Like one is like, oh, cool, like we're slightly lifting in frequency, but the other is like, oh, now we're in this like duality, polarization, in absolute chaos. And if people don't know how to hold their center in that, it actually creates a lot of uncertainty, a lot of chaos, a lot of like things get manifested unintentionally, because if the whole vibration is in that space and the whole collective field is going into that, it's like all that fear and all that emotion suddenly creates things very quickly. And so we've seen the effects of that in the timelines, obviously with the whole, you know, coronavirus thing and everything else, with the election and everything that's been going on as well. But what I've been noticing just in the last few days is there's actually energetically stuff happening in between the 4-5D interface, so that, you know, when we do hit this tipping point of planetary ascension, when the vibration of the planet actually anchors from 3 to 5D and we're able to stay in that in a stable sort of way, it's actually through the interfaces that some of those anchor points are going to allow for that stability to happen. Because right now there are people that are very much in that fluctuation, like they're going into the 5D vibration, but a lot of people are still very much in the vortex of the 4th dimensional, in the polarity, in, you know, like people call it shadows or whatever. Whereas once you get to actual like 5D vibration, it is just pure light, and it is a unified field consciousness. You don't actually have that duality. And so I'm seeing how people are moving in the transition, and the transition is fine. The transition is going along just well, but it's actually in these, we call them the interfaces between the 4th and 5th dimension, where there's a lot of shifting happening at the moment.
So what does that feel like? What's an experience like that? Like to go from, because I'm seeing like, it's like a thing is weaving these two dimensions together almost. That's just what the image comes up for me. But what's the experience of like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, gosh, well, the only way I've got it in my brain is like from my engineering background of designing like PN junctions and silicon chips. I don't expect anyone to understand this, but there's like a layering of like interface that happens as you're making microchips. Probably not a relevant analogy to anyone who's actually watching.
Yeah, it's like crickets in the audience.
Totally. My scientific mind like fully understands this.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like say you put together 2 slices of toast and you put like a layer of chocolate in between them, and this is like the layer of chocolate. So we're like refining the layer of chocolate to make that transition really easy, so we have a nice sandwich between the 4th and 5th dimension so we can actually cross through. Does that make sense? I
like my weaving analogy better, actually. The needle and the thread. Sure. Like 2 bits of fabric together, so we can it's like then it creates like an onboarding process. Would that be almost right? Like, so everyone else can like.
Yeah, it's what it is. Like how I actually see it visually is like you've got a fourth dimensional frequency and a fifth dimensional frequency, and they're vibrating at different levels. So the interface is where those 2 points actually meet. Like there's a resonance between them, right? There's a resonance between two slightly different frequencies. Because even inside each dimensional space, if we're going to get really technical here, each dimensional space has sub bandwidths or sub levels. Right. And so the standard model for that is like 12 into 12. So you've got like inside the fourth dimension, there are 12 sub levels. And so you've got the lower fourth dimension and the higher fourth dimension. This is where people get really confused, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got like the beings that are in the lower fourth dimension that are actually not benevolent. And then you've got the beings in the higher fourth dimension, which are benevolent. And they're also going through an ascension process of their own, and they're evolving in that space. And so like you have to be quite discerning when you start tapping into those realms as to what those actual frequencies are and what I guess what those beings are vibrating at when you're connecting with them. But when I talk about the interface, there's a tipping point where it goes from being a fourth dimensional polarity vibration to a fifth dimensional unity vibration. And that flip is so like, it's so subtle, but there is an interface between that. There's actual interfaces between, there's an interface between the 3 and 4D, and there's an interface between the 4 and 5D. And so it's like that little frequency shift that people get to, that it kind of just crosses you over. And what's actually been happening, this year that I've noticed, the 340 interface, those veils have been very thin. So there's been a lot of energies that have been like coming through that interface, and there's been a lot of like, 40 sort of messiness coming in through the lower fourth dimension and actually manifesting into 3D, which Star Family obviously have been quite on top of, and there's been a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes about that. But I guess the more people step into those higher frequencies, it's about getting straight from the 3 into the 5D. So we're going, it's like we're using the fourth dimension as like the eye of the needle, and then we're actually coming out into the unity consciousness.
That analogy of the eye needle has really got me. Hey, like just today, even, like I love it, and I feel like we're all being squeezed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that like a good summary as well of like 2020? What you're saying and what I'm saying, because I remember back in like I don't know, when like COVID hit, there was like a day where I felt like, holy crap, it's happening. It's like, I feel it, it's in the air, everyone's feeling it. It's like, it almost felt like that's when we switched over to the 4D vibration. And 2020 has been about like moving through that collectively. Can you?
Yeah, I feel like it has, in a weird way, been like this eye of the needle year, like the whole year's been in that transition. I'm really looking forward to being on the other end of this, where we can actually like get through that interface and just like, let's just get into 2021 now. I think that's the feels at the moment.
Yes, I think and it's stripping a lot back. Hey, would you say that? Like it's making us like really refine all of our attachments and our world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is the year where people really have had that next level of awakening. They've really had that next level of expansion. And I think for a lot of people, this has been the year where, I mean, I can speak for myself when I say that when this year happened and all the events of this year happened, I had this feeling of like, I was born for this. It's like I spent the last like, since 2015 preparing for 2020. So when all the chaos hit, it was like, cool, I know what to do. Like I know how to center myself. I know how to be in this vibration. I know how I need to serve my community. I know how I need to show up in this, because everyone else was going into like fear and panic and chaos and like all of that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, it's like I've been training for this for the last few years so that I could show up in this moment and then be like, I guess, be the example that there's another way that we can do this, that we don't need to go into the fear, that we don't need to go into the chaos, that we can stay centered and remember ourselves as the conscious creators of this reality and what that looks like. And to me, it's been very practical because, to be honest, I've had a great year, and there's definitely this element of like, oh, you can't say that too loudly because like, a lot of people are still struggling, and like a lot of love to wherever people are at on the spectrum. But I know that for me, everything that I know about frequency and vibration is the reason why I've actually cruised through 2020. And I know a lot of people, even like yourself, Dylan, and like, the other people in my circles, it hasn't actually been that intense. I mean, there's been layers of intensity in terms of what's coming through energetically, and at a practical level, there's been a lot of adjustment, and I totally get all of that. But the ones that are a little bit more in the know about, you know, frequency and energy and vibrations and the spiritual side of this, I feel like we've just cruised through a lot of this because we're not getting caught up in the stories and the dramas and the old paradigms, and we're able to just see what's going on from a bigger picture perspective and be more, like, even more mindful of the conscious creation and being more mindful of what is that frequency that we're contributing to the creation. And I think that's been massive for me because it's taking responsibility for the part that I'm actually engaging with inside of that field and what I'm actually, I guess, putting into it, like what I'm creating in there.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into our actual conversation today, hey? Because we were going to talk about sovereignty, and I think sovereignty really speaks into that idea of conscious creation and like being like the pillar of your own reality. But in actually, what's the word, contemplating this conversation and this idea of sovereignty, I actually couldn't really get much. I couldn't really like grasp it that well. And it's similar with free will as well, because I've always erred between, it's so obvious I have free will. Obviously I choose to show up in this way, like it's my choice. But then there's another part of me that's like, no, there's no way I chose that. It just happened. Like it was God, it wasn't me. So I would love to like, yeah, move into that and maybe just ask you like really basic, like, what do you feel like? What is sovereignty? And then on the other side of that, like, how does free will tie into that? And how can we talk about that?
Yeah, I think this is such a powerful topic, especially to bring up in 2020, because I think a lot of people have been questioning this concept of free will versus like, is life just happening to us? You know, and I think 2020, I mean, for some has been this experience of going into the victim, like, you know, oh, this year has just happened to us. It caught us off guard. We didn't create this. Like, and for some, it's like, you know, whether you're at the level of, oh, this pandemic just happened and it was completely unpredictable and unexpected, and that's still like a victim sort of thing of like, oh, we don't have control over that. And then there's another layering of people who are like a little bit more conscious, and they're like, oh, the government's created this, and the cabal, and like, you know, you get into that side of the conspiracy side of it, but there's still this sense of, oh, but like they're doing it to us.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, neither of those stories actually acknowledge your free will and sovereignty in that space. So I think, you know, what I really want to share on that is that we are sovereign whether we realize it or not. And I think, you know, depending on the lens that you want to view this, like there are definitely stories that will tell you that that humanity has lost their free will and that, you know, government is trying to control us. And while there are definitely elements of truth in that, you know, in terms of what goes on behind the scenes of how much free will humanity actually has, I think part of the awakening process is actually recognizing that the free will never actually was taken away from us. And that right there is the illusion. Because to think that putting on a mask takes away your free will is ridiculous. It's like your free will is not determined by a mask. Your free will is not determined by what the government is doing. Your free will is not determined by the existence of a pandemic. No matter what is happening in that external reality at the 3D, you know, level of this creation, we are constantly in a space of creatorship, and we're constantly in a space of being our divine selves. Whether you know it or not, you are divine, right? And this is where the illusion comes in, because a lot of people have forgotten their divinity and they've forgotten that part where they can consciously create. Now, if 7.8 billion people on this planet right now just turned around and said, we don't choose this timeline anymore, we're ready to ascend, it would happen instantaneously, right? And this is the game. It's like, the game has gotten people to forget that they're able to do that. And so in that forgetting, there's this idea of people that are waking up that are going, oh, our free will has been taken away from us. And I'm like, no, your free will was never taken away from you. You just forgot that you had it. And the second you remember that, the game is flipped. So you don't need to sit there fighting the governmental agencies and like going off and, you know, into these like conspiracies around how you can gain your free will back. Because if you're trying to get your free will back, you haven't remembered that you actually had it all along. And I think that right there is such a key message for people to get, especially the people that are waking up right now. Because if you still believe this idea that the government has power over you, or that the cabal has power over you, or that the Illuminati has power over you, you have forgotten yourself as a divine creator, right?
Wow. And that goes into every little corner of the mind as well, because I've noticed, I don't know whether it's in me or in everyone, or it's both, right? Like you can be so empowered, and then you have all these, like, you have these thoughts or these ideas, or I hear people that are so empowered and they go and throw in like this idea of something is against them. I'm like, wait, that doesn't add up. Like, and I just find that space quite curious and interesting, because it's really extreme what you're talking about, isn't it? Like, to what extent are you talking about that we have that free will? Because is it everything?
I'm talking, you can tune in and you can change your frequency at any given moment. Isn't that the ultimate free will? Because if your frequency is creating your reality, then your entire reality is not based on anything outside of you. So the moment you take a breath and you come into presence and you focus on your heart and you actually radiate that frequency of love, then you are creating a world with love. And when you recognize that you have that power to create, then suddenly everything that's happening in this reality, you are able to consciously contribute to. So then you're no longer a victim to what is happening in the world. You're no longer a victim to what's happening at a collective level. And suddenly this idea that one person can't change the world is preposterous, because one person can change the world. You can change the world today. Each and every one of you that are watching this can change the world, right? And it has nothing to do with a pandemic or no pandemic, or cabal or no cabal, or government or no government. It has everything to do with the frequency that you put out into the universe, which you can consciously choose in any given moment. That is your birthright, right? That is your absolutely birth-given free will capacity to take a breath. You can take a breath in this moment, and in that breath, you have the capacity to choose the reality that you create. So as soon as you recognize that, the rest of it is absolute bullshit. Dust my head.
Yeah, I know. That's it. See you guys. Bye. Thanks for coming. Because I get that. Like, it's so true. And I think, I'm almost like wary to speak into this gap that I feel sort of is present, you know, in the collective or in the mind or in the audience. It's like, well, why is that so hard? And like, why don't I? Why aren't we?
Right, because somebody told you that you can't.
And I chose to believe
That's the illusion. You were told that you can't. You were told that authority comes from outside of you. You were told that you have to bend your will to the will of others. Society taught you to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to show up in a certain way in society, to do certain things, to have a certain trajectory in your life, right? In schools, children are not taught how to think for themselves. They're taught what to think. They're given facts. They're given facts and information. They're not taught how to be in their internal state of being and to feel their way through this reality.
Yeah.
Right? So that right there is the game changer. That's the missing piece. Because when every child on this planet is taught to just sit within themselves and to feel what feels as the right action for them, it takes education away from knowledge and facts into actually just feeling and intuiting their way through life. And I think, you know, at the moment we have created a society that is so based around like what is considered factual or even what is considered scientific. You know, this is not a hate speech on science. I'm actually all for scientific, you know, proof on all things, but it's like this idea that we have to see it before we believe it, instead of recognizing that when you believe it, you create it. Because when you believe it, you become it. And when you become it, it exists. And so like that idea that we are the creators of this space has really been lost through the education system, through the generations, through you know, the disconnect in like the dreaming. And, you know, like if you go back to ancient civilizations, you talk about, you know, Native Americans, indigenous people, they get this. They get that you can walk up to a tree and you can communicate with a spirit and you can receive the download of what that's going to do for you. And the tree will tell you that it will heal you with X, Y, and Z if you actually communicate with that. Like that stuff is not taught in schools. Yeah. Right. So the idea that we're consciously creating with Mother Earth and with everything in this reality has been so lost from our paradigm that enough humans have started to believe that creation happens outside of them. And so then suddenly, instead of being responsible and actually in that centeredness with creation as co-creation, we've got into this idea that life is happening to us. And so suddenly everybody's in victim. This pandemic happened to us. This government happened to us. So-and-so said that I'm not free anymore. So-and-so put me in a box. It's like, no, we put ourselves there to some extent, you know? So there is an element of responsibility in that. But there's also in that, you know, I think when you take responsibility, you can also own the fact that you can take yourself out of it. So for people to really lift into this vibration of conscious creatorship with the planet, with this, you know, world that we live in, you have to first recognize that we have the capacity to create, and that, oops, we did create this thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's like this is where we landed. You know what I mean?
Oops.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just freaking own that. Like, let's just own it. take responsibility for it and be like, cool, what can we do from here?
Yeah. Do you think that's kind of like, that's the hard step? It's like, oh shit, I did this. Like, I'm the one that has the bad marriage and has taught my children the weird things. And because I'm listening to you and I'm looking at the world and going like, from that perspective, it's like, what is this? What are we doing? Why are we playing this game? Why are we doing all this weird stuff with the earth and with each other? And we've got really far away. And so to come back is like, on one level, you know, a long journey, but on another level, it's actually just, oops, you know, realizing. How do you teach realizing?
Oh,
that's interesting, because you do this.
Well, I transmit it through example. Like I become what it is that I'm trying to teach, and then people enter that space and they feel that. I think, you know, there's definitely an element of releasing the conditioning in the mind, and this is where, you know, other tools come in. Like you can go through and you can process your inner child, and you do shadow work, and you do your, you know, your healing processes and blah blah blah. Like all that stuff can come in. But at the core of everything, what I've learned is there is a simplicity in that. If you actually understand that you are a conscious creator of your reality in this moment, and that in this moment you can change your reality instantaneously, then all you do is you set the intention and say, I choose to become that now. It's the same as like, okay, so many years ago when I was going through my breakup and like stepping into my awakening, I was going through this period where I was like, I wanted to experience unconditional love. And more than that, I wanted to become unconditional love. And in that moment, I hadn't believed that I was it. So instead of trying to use affirmations that I didn't resonate with and be like, I am unconditional love, I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't feel that. Like I genuinely didn't feel that at that time. So I was like, I give intention to be unconditional love. So setting an intention sometimes is just as powerful, because when you set an intention to become the version of yourself that you want to be, then the universe starts to show you how you can do that. And you start to meet the right teachers or the right, it could be the right books, it could be the right modalities, I don't know, like anything that's required for you to come into that realization and the understanding, recognizing that for some people there may be a process in that. So for me, I didn't just go through my awakening overnight and suddenly I just like love myself. It was like I had to battle all my insecurities and my anxiety and my depression, and I didn't feel like I was lovable, and I didn't feel worthy, and I didn't feel like I had my life together at all. But I had the intention, and I put out to the universe that I was willing to do whatever it would take. And just by setting that intention alone, things started to rearrange themselves in my reality, where I did meet the people and the situations and things that allowed me to explore what it would be like to step into unconditional love. And I feel like I'm still exploring it, you know, like I'm still exploring that intention of like really becoming that space of love so that I can be in it, and then I can also transmit that to other people. And it started with an intention. So, you know, people are watching this and they're like, oh, like I understand what you're saying, but how do I just suddenly believe that I'm the conscious creator of my reality? Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you set the intention to the universe and say, hey, universe, show me how I can experience this so that I can feel it for myself. That is so powerful.
And then there's the step 2 there, which I've always found, because I've always like, it's like I've already secretly known that. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I've always, so if I had like an intention or a desire, right, or a vision, it's like, oh, okay, it'll be done. I want it, it'll be done. And with that feeling, it's always been like, there's basically a letting go. And I've always found that there's some other things that I want, and I go, oh, I want it, how do I get it? Like, let's go and get it. And I found that some of those actions and those desires have actually been, I've acted upon them. Like the second step has been more like resistance rather than like allowing it to come in. So something you want to say on that?
Yeah, well, I can tell you I've been there. I've definitely been the resistance of that, because when you set something like for myself, I mean, setting that intention to be unconditional love, the first thing the universe said to me was, are you sure? Are you ready? And it tested me. Like it really, you know, like it really tested me in that. And even though now I have different views on, you know, the whole universe testing and like learning thing, there definitely was a space of like transition in, it was like, is this really what you want? Like, is this really the vibration that you seek to experience? And you have to be really solid in that. And this is where you have to take action on your intention. You can't just go around setting intentions and sitting around like meditating and love and light all day and expecting things to happen without you backing yourself. So when you back yourself, and I talk about this a lot in the business context of like, you know, manifesting and that sort of thing,
when you take tangible action on something that you've intended to experience or receive from the universe, then the universe is like, oh, this person's actually serious, and suddenly that momentum comes in behind you. But if you just sit around with this intention and then you don't change anything about yourself in your life, the universe is like, oh, they're saying one thing, but they're doing another. And actions speak a lot louder than words in this universal game of frequency. So if your actions are in alignment with your old belief systems, the universe will actually give you more of that rather than what your new intentions are.
True. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of responsibility then. Because what I was actually tapping into is I have these things where and I've had this like all my life sort of thing where it's like, oh, if it's a true desire, like a desire will come up, and I'll go, if it's a true desire, then it will come. And it's very free and easy. And then somehow it sort of arrives on my plate. But I guess that's because my actions, I'm always taking actions that I feel are in resonance with truth rather than something else. So yeah, I maybe just like, that's just fundamental for me. I don't really care how it looks. I mean, I do, my ego has all these things, right? But fundamentally, I actually just care about the truth of reality. And so I've just always been going after that. And then every desire that I've like wanted to manifest, like it hasn't mattered whether it manifests or not, as long as it's related to true. And then it actually has accelerated my journey massively because I've just sort of like let it go. As opposed to, say, my ego's desires, where I'm actually like, I want this thing, and like the whole ego game plays this game of like, I have to create it. And there's a piece here which I want to tap into, because we're not doing it all because it's too amazing. It's too amazing. The way it does manifest is like, it's like it comes with cherries and cream on top. It doesn't, like, when it really is aligned, right? So what else is at play here? And yeah, what's that?
I think you touched upon a really important topic, and I'm glad we're actually going into this, because people do get quite confused in the difference between like personal free will and divine free will. And there's a lot of alignment in that, because I'm always tapped into my intention is always, can everything I do please be in alignment with the highest good for everyone? That's it. Yeah. Like, there's a level of harmony that I set in all intentions that I put out, that it's not just about me getting what I want. And because you can create from ego. You can take everything I've said and you can be like, oh, I just want like, I don't know, whatever, like put X, Y, out the universe, and you will get it. Like you're 100%, people use law of attraction like this all the time. But then this is the other piece of that. Like for me, I see the layers of interconnectedness and through the dimensional frequencies, how everything's playing out. And while the universe will back you in your, your free will, even if it comes from personal desire, my personal intention is to always be in that divine connectedness as well. So what I want is also what is coming through my higher self and what's coming through my higher soul aspects. And so that's when, for me, the element of creation is not so much about, like, I want to touch on that responsibility aspect. It's not so much about responsibility as it is about like being the vessel for that. Because on the one hand, yes, as humans, we are responsible for this co-creation and energetic level. We have created it, and I get all of that. Like I get that lens very, very well. But there's also another lens in this, which is that actually there's a massive big picture here. And maybe we are just, like in this situation because our souls have agreed to be here. And there's some like grand creation in all of this that even we don't understand. And I'm fully open to that and fully get that this is bigger than me. This is so much bigger than me. This is bigger than anything I can comprehend right now. And so then it comes back to, well, what piece of this can I tap into, and what is being asked of me in this moment? So that in that space, I come into presence of just what is it that, is really resonating for me in my heart at this time? Can I trust that it's coming through divinity? Can I trust that it's flowing in harmony? And then can I take action on that? Because from that space, what you're creating then, I do find it is, like you said, it's like the universe then returns that with all the cherries on top, and suddenly your creation is bigger and better than anything you could have imagined. Yeah. Like my life is way better than what I had imagined. If I was completely 100% solely responsible for my creation at the personal level, my life would be a lot less fun and exciting than it is right now. Because I wouldn't have even in my mind been able to comprehend the level of awesomeness that I've created for myself. And so there's absolutely this level of expansion. And when you have that, when you recognize yourself as a creator, but also simultaneously, I guess in the paradox, if you want to call it that, surrender into it, then in that surrender, suddenly there's even more expansion. And then suddenly I'm not doing anything at all. And then I'm just showing up every single day and life is just flowing through me but it's not in that like, victim sort of thing. It's like, no, I'm actually a vessel for the divine, and the divine is expressing through me. And what is in my highest joy at this moment is also in divine will, in harmony, in flow with everyone. And then suddenly you find yourself having these beautiful surprises in life where things just come in. You're like, wow, this is like 10 times better than anything I could have consciously created for myself. So I totally get that part of it too.
Yeah, I love that. And so does it then become like a being attuned to what role you want to play, of like, okay, I should take action here, or I should just surrender and hold the space? And like, how can you best navigate those two lenses that we're talking about, of like, hey, I'm creating, but also it's also not up to me. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is the co-creation, isn't it? This is why I like to use the word co-creating rather than creating, because we are co-creating with the universe and in the divine and with all other humans in every single moment.
Yeah.
And so in that co-creation, all I do is I ask myself, how do I wish to show up in that, and what do I wish to contribute to the field? And I keep myself in check of the integrity of that and what I'm placing into that. And that's important to me. Like, I'm very mindful of what frequencies I'm putting out to the universe and what frequencies I'm putting out into any space that I'm in. And then inside of that, I guess there's layers. A little layer I want to touch upon is the layer of control that can sometimes get interwoven with that. Because with responsibility and creation, when it's coming at that personal will level, can also be a control layer where you think you're doing something good, but you're actually just trying to control your reality, and you're trying to do it through the energetic quantum space. And I get that piece really well too. Like, there's this whole element of, I guess, there's schools of thought around, you can have whatever you like and you can demand anything you want from the universe, and you have the capacity to have everything you want. And, there's a lot of people that teach that. I'm like, yeah, cool. There's truth in that. You can. That doesn't feel good to me anymore, because I think this is the other thing, Dylan. Like, I know I can have everything I want. And I got that piece such a long time ago that I was like, this is child's play. Yeah. Manifesting houses, child's play. Manifesting cars, child's play. Manifesting travel, child's play. I'm like, I already know that I can do all of those things. So then the game becomes a lot bigger. Then it's like, cool, how can I have mass level impact on this world? How can I help like the rest of humanity ascend? How can I, assist with the like cosmic disclosure and helping Star Family come down? Like, suddenly I'm more excited by that than I am about having cars and houses and money. Like, all of that stuff becomes a lot less important to where my attention is going, because those things now have actually stepped from manifestation into providence. So I assume the cars and the houses and the money and all of that will be there so that I can do the next level.
I love it. I totally hear you on that. Hey, and I think I'm getting like, I work with people in a way like, okay, there's the divine will here, wants to come through, great. And it's like, if I know what someone else wants to create and they can't see it for themselves, it's like, I'll help see it for them. I'll know it to be true. And then suddenly, like, it becomes true. It becomes manifest for themselves. Do you know what I mean? And that's even small scale from what you're saying. Is like, how do you co-create like the intergalactic bridge?
That's so much more exciting than manifesting cars and houses and money. Like, let's just manifest in your reality while we're at it. You know what I mean? Like, now we're talking big picture stuff here.
And I think that's like what's really called for. It's like, it's so like we're going back to that vision of what we're doing with the earth, or like doing weird things with the earth. It's like, people need to wake up and realize, like, holy crap, we can do this. Okay, let's all do this and go way beyond ourselves, way beyond this sort of immediate material personal desires, and see, like, let's just go for the big shot. Hey, it seems and feels right. Let's just go for that. And I think that's what we've been doing for a while now. And that's kind of like why we're here today, in such a even weirder world. Cool. I don't know where to go. Where should we go? How do you manifest the intergalactic bridge?
Oh, so this one's very easy for me. I'm like,
oh, well, don't worry then. Another question.
This one's quite simple. Literally every day you wake up and you visualize yourself on 5D ascended earth, and you see that vision and you anchor yourself to that, and you see who you are in that space and how that feels, and you bring it into the body, and suddenly there you are. Because at a vibrational level, you enter into that space just by taking that time to visualize it every day. So I do, like, every day I'm like, what does ascended earth look like? Cool, there I am, boom. Like, and then I'm just projecting backwards from there into, okay, well, if that's what that reality is, then you go through the timeline of like, so now what do I need to do today to practically get one step closer towards that?
Amazing. Yeah, that's the same with everything, right? Actually, that's where it becomes like, Well, I don't need to freaking manifest cookies. It was just one of your old jokes. It's actually, it's as easy to manifest that as it is to manifest the intergalactic bridge. Isn't there like an amazing parable about that? I don't know, but there is something like that.
Well, there's always amazing parables and cookies. I mean, just vegan cookies, you know what I mean? They teach me everything about life. I've learned everything I know about ascension through vegan cookies, guys.
Possible. And there's an in-joke here. She manifested some cookies. Then someone else did, didn't they? In your space.
Anyone who's watching this has no idea about the cookies. There's a thing with cookies.
Everyone has their own cookie joke though. Like, so you're not like, everyone has their own.
Like, welcome to the dark side. We have cookies. Like, that's.
What? Cookies are the dark? What?
Like, welcome to the dark side. We have cookies.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. Like, how many people are gonna watch this now and go out and like manifest themselves vegan cookies, right?
Well, everyone can. I mean, we're just giving the codes away. Yeah, I know. Everyone breathe in. That's it.
Somebody did that at my last event. Do you remember at the awakening when one of the guys went and manifested vegan cookies after the first day of the event, and he posted, I was like, guess what? I found vegan cookies. He just ended up at this shop, and like there they were, and I was like, see, everyone's making these manifestations happen. Bring on the vegan.
Hey, that's it.
Bring on the vegan
cookies. Okay, cool. So that's how we create reality. Well, I don't know what else to talk about now. Bloody hell.
I think the piece that we I just want to, I guess, elaborate a bit more on is this concept of sovereignty. And coming back to, what we're saying before, I know that there are people with certain points of view that are like, you have to reclaim your sovereignty. And there are people that are doing very practical things to reclaim that. Like, so I'm talking common law sort of stuff, like, going down the road of like legally claiming back that sovereignty. And as much as I fully understand that, and I fully understand the whole thing about like, common law and how like we are sort of like objects of, like the government and the crown, like all of that sort of thing. And I understand at a basic level what that looks like. I think when you learn to play the game at a much more energetic level, there are contracts that have happened in like galactic spaces that it's like nobody needs to give you permission to reclaim your sovereignty. I think that sentence is really important for certain people to hear, because there's this idea that like you have to be told when you can reclaim your sovereignty. It's like you can actually just choose to have that now. The moment you set that intention to the universe, you reclaim your sovereignty with or without anything that's happening on this 3D level, right? Because your sovereignty is actually tied into you as a divine being. And really at the core level of this, you reclaim your sovereignty when you remember that you are divine creator. So when you remember that you're divine creator, everything that's happening at the 3D level, it actually has to come into alignment with that. And I know there's plenty of people that are sort of playing this game the other way, where they're going through like the legal systems and stuff like that, which is fine. I get that paradigm, but there's levels of like higher dimensional stuff that also needs to get tied into this, because when you're playing at those realms and you understand that even the contracts only really exist at some layerings, the contracts themselves become completely obsolete when you step into the highest level of source. Because the highest level of source, what contract is there? So again, it's like, what lens are you looking through? What frequency are you looking through? And which stories are you choosing to believe? Because if you are 100% source frequency and you're embodying that frequency right now, all contracts and all dimensional time-space realities, all multidimensional realms become obsolete. That's
that space of like, do you get this? And other people might get it. Because I've always come to it inside my meditation often, and it doesn't have to be in meditation. It can just, sometimes I walk and breathe it. I just know like the thing is created. And that's that's a frequency piece to the whole creation that I think is actually essential. And if I'm trying to manifest vegan cookies or an intergalactic bridge, I actually need to know that it's done, right? Before I can see it. And like is that essential? And do you get that? Do you experience that?
I think that knowing is absolutely vital, because if there's any level of uncertainty or doubt in your being as you're putting these frequencies out, remember, everything is a game of frequency. So if you have 80% certainty and 20% doubt coming in, then your manifestation isn't going to be 100% in clarity. So like having that solidarity in yourself to just be like, yeah, this is happening, to just be so clear on that is how it gets manifested. But this is the thing for me, that knowing also comes with tapping into those higher spaces. Like, for example, I think some people know the story from last year when I went to the UK and I was on this steam train, and there was a whole story about like me getting on the steam train, and then this guy comes around with a raffle and he's like, you know, do you want to enter this raffle? And in my mind, I was like, I've already won that prize.
Yeah.
So did I create that, or was it already in the field? I don't know. It's like chicken or the egg, right? But I knew with a level of certainty that I was going to win that thing. And so we bought a bunch of tickets, and just the energy was so high. We're all giggling away. And of course, you know, we got to this stop, and then they pulled this raffle out, and of course I won the thing. And so I got to ride on the footplate in the steam engine, and I got to like toot the horn, and I had a great old time. But this is the thing, right? Like, I knew that was for me. Like, I knew that was my experience, and I checked in with my guides as well, and they were like, this is already yours. And so there's levels of certainty in that. And I, you know, there is a questioning in me as well. It's like, did I do that, or did they do that, or did some higher version of me do that? And I think it's all of the above, because it's all connected, right? So me in connection with divine will and my higher self and all that, we co-created that experience together where I won that prize. Wow. It's the same as like with Uluru. You know, like I booked my flight to go to Uluru before I knew that I'd been accepted to present in this, to exhibit in this conference. But my guides already said to me, they were like, don't worry, we've got you covered. It's all good. So I went and booked the flights on the certainty that it was already going to happen and that I didn't have to worry about it. And then when I took the action, it added even more certainty into the field. And so then suddenly everything came into alignment. It's like, oh, ta-da, there it is. And next thing I've got the confirmation emails and I'm all good to go. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think the key in all of this is when you recognize who you are as a multidimensional being, in that multidimensionality, you have sovereignty and you have free will. So when you're creating from that space, you realize that the government has no hold over you.
Yeah.
There is like this idea that somebody else on this planet is able to impede on your free will is preposterous, because on this planet, we're all on a level playing field. Right? We're all equal in this 3D reality. It's not like one person has like more power or more capacity than anyone else, because everyone is a sovereign being. Now, if you've forgotten your sovereignty, remember your sovereignty. Like, you know, I think this is the message of like, just remember that you are that, and that there's a simplicity in that. You don't need permission to be that. You already have it all along. And the second that you watch this video and you recognize that you're it all along, that's enough. Like that is actually enough. And you can just step back into, oh, I can choose my frequency right now. And in that I am free. That's it.
That's interesting piece actually, because I get that on this level, we're all say equally as powerful or like equal, but in the embodiment, we're actually not. Like some people are way more powerful than others. And I don't mean that as like, what did you say? I
don't believe that in the slightest.
Okay. I don't mean that in like the hierarchy sort of sense. I just mean like if you're connected to say that multidimensional aspect and you're like the train example, like your power of creation there was just so that no one could have knocked you off that course. That's kind of what I'm saying, because unless someone else was like equally creating at that level, and I'm saying everyone can, but not everyone is. And that's why I'm saying like there is a level of like embodied greater empowerment in certain people than in other people.
Yes and no. I understand what you're saying, but also coming back to that train example, it's like in the highest divinity of all the different threads weaving together, that experience was mine to have. And if everyone else had been tapped into that, the higher levels, they wouldn't even bother buying the raffle ticket.
Yeah, they would have, recognized that.
Like, Eesha, off you go, have the thing. Like, it was already mine, you know? So this is where, like, the guessing game part of it becomes a little bit redundant. You don't have to gamble your way through life. You can just go, yep, this is mine or this is not. And so, like, there are times when, you know, I mean, I could be in a similar situation and just know, oh, no, that's not mine. But I wouldn't even then bother entering the competition. Yeah. Right? Because I would just know, oh, somebody else needs to have that. So I feel the resonance of that. And in that, this is like that concept of harmony coming in, which we spoke about a few times, the concept of harmony where like one person's desire can be met in alignment and harmony with everyone else's. And when everyone's tapped into that field, that unified field, we know how everything needs to pan out. Yeah. It's very easy from that perspective.
Does that mean, because this is what I get, does that mean that everyone actually has the same desire from a different angle?
Well, depending on the lens, yeah. Did everyone want to win that prize on the train? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, maybe some people didn't want to. I don't know. But I think at the highest level, I think what you're tapping into, Dylan, is like the highest desire for all humans is connection.
Yeah.
what we're all desiring, like literally what we're all desiring is to experience connection and creation, right? That is like the highest form of vibration in this universe, where we're just in that ultimate creative space, right? And I think on some level everybody is wanting to experience that, but people don't always know how to get that. So then when people are not fully tapped into those spaces, they choose to express their creation in ways that might be more like of a control sort of frequency, or of like a like impeding on someone's free will frequency in order for them to get what they want. Because ultimately everybody just wants what they want, and you know what I mean? Like I feel personally that innately everyone is good, and that people who do things that impede on another's free will, it's just because they don't know another way, and they don't know what the frequency of harmony feels like. And you can take this to, you know, even like acts of violence, or acts of like things that we would consider to be really morally wrong. But it's like trying to understand where that person's coming from, because everybody's just trying to have their needs met on some level. And the highest need that people are trying to have met at this time, I believe, is connection. Because when you feel connectedness to other human beings, and connection to yourself, and connection to the world around you, then suddenly there is this desire to be a really good person, and to be in a space of giving, and to be in a space of contribution, and to be in a space of creation, right? But if somebody doesn't know that, and they don't know what that feels like, and they've been living in this space of survival this whole time, and they've been taught that they have to, you know, like the only way to get what they want is they have to take it from the universe, and they have to just like survive on the streets, or whatever it is, whatever background people have had, they just don't know any better. And that's when, you know, for those of us that do have those different levels of understanding, those of us who have been privileged enough to have, you know, spiritual mentors, and to access this wisdom and these esoteric knowings, we bring compassion into that. We bring compassion to the people that just don't know. They just don't know. Like, and who's going to show them? We have to show them. That's the responsibility. Like if somebody doesn't know that, if somebody's grown up in the ghetto and doesn't know that there's another way, you can't blame that person. You know, you have to come in with levels of compassion to the people for the layers of understanding that they're at. Because if we recognize ourselves as conscious creator, then it is up to us to also free every single other person around us. You know what I mean? Like there is, and I know some people don't resonate with that, because it's like, oh, you can't rescue everybody. And I get all those lenses too. But my knowingness in this is so strong. It's like each layer of awakening that I have, all I desire is to help other people to learn that too. But I'm like people that are ready, you know, like I meet the people at their levels of readiness without trying to fix them, without trying to force it upon them. But it's like, hey, I've got this amazing thing. I've got this amazing tool. I've got this amazing wisdom. I've got this knowing of my life that we're, you know, these amazing conscious creators of our reality. Would you like to know more about that? And the people that are curious about it and that are resonating with that, they can come into that, and they can start tapping into this frequency through, you know, these videos and all the stuff that I put out there. And so it becomes available. So then more people start to go, oh, this is available too. And my, like a huge part of my being really gains a lot of, I guess, expansion from the sharing of that, because I don't think I would personally enjoy living in a world where I had access to all this wisdom and knowledge about the world, knowing that my fellow human beings didn't know that. You know, and it doesn't feel comfortable to me to look at people that are in those different situations in life, and like I don't want to judge those people. I don't want to just look down on them and be like, oh, they're never going to get there. I don't believe that at all. Like this ascension is happening together. Every single person on this planet, we're going through this together. You know, it's such a collective experience that it's like there has to be layers of compassion in that for people that just don't know any better, people who have forgotten their sovereignty, have forgotten the free will that they have, people who've forgotten how to shift their frequency. You know, and it's huge. It's such a huge piece in like the entirety of, well, everything, the whole world, really. I mean, like this knowledge that you and I are talking about is still very unknown. You know, it's still very small in terms of the amount of the population that actually knows that they can do this. So much of it has been lost and forgotten. And my mission is to just go and share it with as many people as I can. So in that, it's like, I'm grateful that I have been able to remember my sovereignty, my free will. And then in that, there's such a desire to want to make that available to the others that want that as well, because I feel like on some level people are seeking that, and they are seeking that level of elevation now in their lives, because I think a lot of us are done with the bullshit of like, you know, the poverty and the hunger and the climate problems, and like we're over it, you know what I mean? Like let's do something about it. Let's actually get to that next level. Let's start making some noise about it. And I'm so grateful to the people that are doing it in all the different ways, whether it's through like activism or spiritual mentorship or entrepreneurship or conscious business or whatever. Like there's, you know, politics, like there's so many ways that you can make change in the world. I just pray that the people that are in those spaces that are, you know, so-called like in power or have influence in this world are coming at it from that real heart-centered space. And so that's the intention that I put out. And so anyone who's watching it, my key message in today's talk is that you are part of that, and that no one in this universe has more capacity or more free will or more sovereignty than you. So when you find that in yourself, you may become the next president, or you may become the next person of influence in this world, because the moment you recognize your divinity and your sovereignty and your free will, then suddenly you can create whatever it is that you want to create in this world and play whatever role that you want to play to make that happen.
Wow, amazing. Did you just hear yourself then? That was so good. That was so good. I feel like so open and empowered and activated just from that space, that speech. Wow, wow, wow. Oh, and it gave me the image of like us like making that noise and being like, yeah, and this party's happening, and it's like the masses are going to turn around and go like, what's going on over there? Like, I've been worrying about this, and they're going to be like, oh, cool, what's this? Cool, 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 cool. Ding, 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 ding. Holy crap. Oh my God. And that's the desire of connection, connecting us back to ourselves, or to source, or to each other, and to each other, all of those things. And like that just seems like it's just gonna ripple, Eesha. It's gonna happen. It's
already happening. We've already created it, right? It's
exactly
already a thing.
Exactly. So okay, we're sitting there and we're making this noise, right? So what's our next step? Just keep making the noise, keep partying, keep sharing the love.
One, keep connecting in here. Do the work. Like, actually sit in meditation, find out what those action steps are, and then take action. Like, having that balance between the being and the doing, and then actually fearlessly moving through that, you know, because this is where you can sit in meditation and divine can give you this whole mission, and you can sit there and freak out about it too. So it's like trusting in that, surrendering into that, taking action on that. So equally being in contemplative spaces as you are out in the world, taking action on a day-to-day basis, being kind and compassionate to the people around you. Like, how simple is that? You know, the people that you meet on the streets, the people that just come into your field, like, can you treat those people with love and kindness and compassion? And can you just like be mindful of your frequency? That's a huge piece for me. Being aware and mindful of my frequency. If I notice myself going into frustration or anger or guilt or shame or control, or any of those frequencies, like checking myself, like, hey, Eesha, like, check this, because that's going into the field. And then like breathing, and then with love and compassion going, hey, Eesha, you're okay, you're human, forgive yourself, now come back to love, and having that kindness. And so a huge part of my day to day and what I put out is actually just the reflections I have on me, because ultimately the only thing I can change is myself. That's it,
Yeah, that's how we all start. Hey, and another thing I just wanted to add to that was also like the way you're thinking about others. It's like you can be kind and compassionate to someone, but you can think all these things at the same time about maybe the same person or another type of person. And I got earlier on, you're talking about freeing them, but also freeing them within us as well, to be human, to be all of those things that maybe we don't desire and want to recreate as well, just being giving inside of that space as well.
At the end of it all, you come back to just yourself and your free will and your sovereignty, which you've had all along. And that's it. That's the piece. It's like you find that in you, which you already have. You don't need to go sit on a mountain for 20 years to get that. It's like you're already divine creation. Breathe into that space, feel that connectedness, feel connection to yourself, be willing to look at yourself and to embrace all aspects of self. And when you can do that, you are free. You're already free. You always have been. You were born in this world as a free human being, and no matter what happens to you in this reality, your divinity was never caged to begin with. So when you recognize that, it's like, cool, what do you want to create now? And suddenly the whole game changes and you're not in the matrix anymore.
Sweet. I hear you, I feel you, I'm there, I'm doing it. And so is everyone listening, so thank you for that. Amazing. I'm feeling empowered. I'm going to go sit down in meditation and connecting with my heart and see what the next thing I can do. It's what I want to do now. I love it. Anything else?
And then take action. Don't forget
to then do it. Yeah. It's like those two pieces.
And then
the balance of the internal and the external, or the balance of the being and the doing. And obviously it's one without the other. I mean, that's why we're here. Like, I've definitely played around in that space before, but like, that's why I'm here, to manifest, to create heaven on earth, to create this divinity see it and play with it. And then the piece after that, when everyone's harmonized in that space, is like, then we actually live. Then we actually like live on the I don't know what, something insanely beautiful though. And like, that's happening within our lives. Like, whoa. I can't see the future, but feeling into that is way too big than I could even talk about, to be honest. But yeah, I know you've said that before. It's like, you're just like waiting for everyone to for the 5D Earth, for everyone to like catch up and to just be here, and then we can actually party. Rather than just...
When I retire.
Yes.
I sit on the beach drinking coconut water. That's the second half of my life.
Oh, that's such a good dream. Hey, that must be a good motivator. Hey.
That is what I live for.
Oh, so good. Oh, beautiful, Eesha. Thanks for coming on today and the last 4 weeks. So yeah, this is episode 4 of 4. This is the last one we decided to create, and it's been amazing. It's been like a journey, and I'm so grateful that you came on and shared your wisdom, and I'm honored to hold that space for us, for everyone. And it's taught me a lot. Like, every time I've left these conversations and had like those like, oh yeah, okay, unlocking little things, and I'm sure I have other people who experience that too. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. It's been an amazing 4-week series. I'm hoping we can create something again in the future.
Yeah, definitely see more to come from these channels for sure. Cool. Any last pieces for anyone, or for just anything coming through now?
No, that feels very complete.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
thanks so much, Eesha. Thanks everyone for watching, being here as well, and co-creating with us. Send you all love. Bye.